The early 2010s was oversaturated with zombie games, and the genre as a whole was quickly fizzling out. I mean, Resident Evil 6 released in 2012 was an action-packed, multi-storied clusterfuck. And Dead Space 2, which I love very much, released in 2011 and just did what the first game did. It was by far the best game in the genre at that point. Dead Rising 2 released in 2010, and while not quite as good as the first Dead Rising, it was a good sequel. Dead Island released in 2011 and was more RPG than horror, but it was still fun. Silent Hill Downpour was so bad it killed the franchise, so I won't even count it here. Rest in peace, Silent Hill. And Lollipop Chainsaw came out in 2012, which can best be described as a zombie game for coomers. But all these games, with the exception of Dead Space 2, just boil down to slashing and blasting through hordes of undead enemies or just straight up running away. Not really much survival or horror at all, but then, one fateful day in 2013, Naughty Dog released The Last of Us, and it immediately cut through the monotony of the genre. By this point, most games in the genre were either arcade-style gorefest or a sci-fi style game set in the distant future. Not The Last of Us. No, this game takes place in 2033, 20 years after the game was released, and it's one of the most realistic stories I've ever had the pleasure of playing through. But the game does fall victim to the whole main character on the cover holding a gun trend of the times. But at least Naughty Dog was able to convince Sony to let them put Ellie on the cover, so it stood out from the rest. I love the story of this game, but it's pretty basic when you boil it down. With that being said, this game has one of the best cold opens in all of gaming. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, a cold open is a narrative technique of jumping directly into a story at the beginning before the title sequence or opening credits are shown. Now, the opening of The Last of Us shows how things started out and the outbreak began, but just when Joel and his daughter Sarah are about to escape their city, this happens.
It's okay, baby. We're safe. We're safe. Hey, we need help.
Stop!
Please. It's my daughter. I think her leg is broken.
Stop right there!
Okay. We're not sick.
Got a couple of civilians in the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need... Shit. Please don't. Oh, no. Sarah. Move your hands, baby. I know, baby, I know. God. Listen to me. I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby. I know it hurts. Come on, baby. Please. I know, baby. I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. No. No. No, no, no. Please. 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 Please don't. Please.
Boom. Roll title and opening credits. That right there is the game's way of telling you that you're in for a rough ride. And it also does a great job of introducing our main character Joel and why he's so callous and closed off. Then, immediately after this, that heart-wrenching scene, the game just skips forward 20 years, and then the game really starts. The infected are everywhere since the outbreak was a global pandemic, leaving most people in the United States to reside in big cities that were turned into quarantine zones with a heavy military presence. To make a long story short, Joel and his partner Tess are tasked by a rebel group known as the Fireflies with smuggling a teenage girl named Ellie out of the Boston quarantine zone in exchange for a cache of weapons and ammo. After some shenanigans, it's revealed that Ellie is immune to the cordyceps and that the Fireflies need her transported to their lab so they can try to find a cure. I mean, they use the word vaccine in the game, but even at the time of recording this, there are no known vaccines for fungal infections, so it's a video game, so I'll let it slide. Anyway, the Fireflies that they were supposed to hand Ellie off to were ambushed and killed by the military, so it's also revealed that Tess was bitten somewhere along the way, and she makes Joel promise to get Ellie to the Fireflies before getting gunned down. Joel and Ellie escape the military and begin their trek across the country to find the Fireflies. So yeah, pretty simple. A callous old guy with a dead daughter meets a sassy young girl, and they travel in the apocalypse, forming a sort of parent-child bond along the way. Like I said, it's simple when you boil it down. Now let me get into one of my favorite things about this game aside from the story, and that's the enemies. The monsters. Well, I don't want to call them the main threat of the game because they never really gave me as much of a threat as the human enemies. So the quote-unquote zombies in The Last of Us aren't your stereotypical zombies that you see in games like Resident Evil or Dead Rising. Zombies are people who have been infected with a mutated strain of a parasitic fungus known as cordyceps that can infect humans and take over the brain and motor functions. The infected are more of a plot device than a threat. Yes, they can be threatening, and there are plenty of instances of this, but they always felt more like an obstacle. In fact, most encounters with the infected can be avoided entirely by simply either sneaking past them or dealt with by taking them out stealthily. The scariest part about the infected is that not even the characters in the game know for sure if the infected people are dead or not. Like, what if they're just trapped in their own body?
Those things out there. What if the people are still inside? What if they're trapped in there without any control of their body? Scared of that happening to me.
Okay. First of all, we're a team now. Okay, we're gonna help each other out. And second, they might still look like people, but that person is not in there anymore.
Henry says that they've moved on. That they're with their families, like in heaven. Do you think that's true?
I go back and forth. I mean, I'd like to believe it.
But you don't.
I guess not.
The game never really gives a definitive answer, but I personally lean on the side that they're dead since the cordyceps took over their brains. But, let's not talk semantics. The infected don't really have a lot of variations, which is fine since the human enemies make up for that. The runners are your typical zombies that chase you down as per their name when they see you, while the clickers are blind, but they are hard to kill and will instantly kill Joel if one grabs him. The same goes for the bloaters that can throw spore clusters that drain your health. Now, the most interesting part of this game to me is the aesthetic of going through all these abandoned locations that are overgrown and falling apart. It's like seeing what would happen if an entire town or city's population just disappeared overnight and the town went to ruin. Plus, the game does a great job of fleshing out the world by leaving all kinds of notes for you to find that really help put things into perspective. My personal favorite example is the suburbs section of the game. After meeting Henry and Sam, two brothers from Hartford, and escaping Pittsburgh with them, the group heads into a sewer to make their way to a nearby radio tower, and all throughout this section are notes which tell the story of a fisherman named Ish. Now, Ish was initially out to sea for several months after the initial outbreak, before being forced to go ashore near Pittsburgh sewer entrances. He took up residence inside, eventually constructing his own safe house. But then, in need of supplies, he searched the nearby suburbs where he encountered a family, Susan, Kyle, and their children, who, much to his surprise, did not shoot him on sight. They traded supplies with each other before Ish returned to his hideout. Now, Ish was lonely and, realizing that there was no point in surviving alone, went back to the family to offer them refuge in the sewers. The group obliged, and the safe house eventually became a thriving community. I mean, they had a school, makeshift beds, shower stalls, and even rain catchers. Ish then met a man called Danny, deciding the two should become the protectors of the community, salvaging armor, assault rifles, and sawed-off shotguns from dead Fedra soldiers. A child within the settlement later depicted the pair in their gear in a drawing, as their protectors, their heroes. But sadly, nothing seems to last in the world of The Last of Us, and at an unknown point in time, a door leading to the safe house was left open by one of the group, which allowed a horde of infected to flood in. But Ish, Susan, and a few of the children managed to escape, barricading the suburb side entrance to the sewers. Kyle was separated from the group, where he became trapped in a room with a small group of children. With the infected at the door, it's implied that he shot all of the children to save them from turning into infected, and then shot himself. Ish and those who managed to escape with him took shelter in the suburbs, Ish now protecting the last of his group. But his fate, as well as that of Susan's and several children, is left unknown. It's just the little things like that that make me love this game even more than I already do. This game reminds me a lot of something like The Walking Dead, and honestly, that's not a bad thing. If you're gonna copy something, you might as well copy one of the best zombie stories out there. But I love the idea of just walking through a somber, abandoned neighborhood and not really knowing for sure what exactly went down to leave it like this. Alright, enough of me gushing about that. I want to talk about the big bite in this game, the final section, Salt Lake City, Utah. The final section of the game starts off on a nice slow pace, considering that the last two sections were both pretty intense, with Joel almost dying by getting impaled on a piece of rebar, followed by Ellie almost getting killed and eaten by a group of cannibals. So yeah, starting off on a calm note is very welcoming at this point, and helps usher in the vibe that the journey is slowly coming to an end. Of course, in typical video game fashion, it's not a straight line to the hospital that the Fireflies are held up in, so Joel and Ellie take a detour and end up having to cross over a now flooded tunnel with a raging river flowing through it. And right as Joel is about to get to the other side, the bus he was standing on falls into the rapids, and Ellie jumps in to pry open the bus window to free him. But Ellie can't swim and almost drowns. Joel saves her, and while giving her CPR, they're found by the Fireflies, who knock him out. He wakes up in the hospital with the leader of the Fireflies, Marlene, sitting next to his bed, and she informs him that they managed to resuscitate Ellie and are prepping her for surgery to remove the cordyceps from her brain. And here's the twist. The cordyceps grow all over the brain, so removing the growths will kill Ellie in the process. And Marlene knew this the whole time. Right at the end of the game, it blindsides both Joel and the player with an ultimatum. Save Ellie, and damn humanity, or let her die, and essentially save the human race from potential extinction. Now by this point in the story, Joel and Ellie have developed a sort of father-daughter relationship, so the decision is a no-brainer for Joel, and he proceeds to slaughter every person who gets in his way as he makes his way to the top floor of the hospital to get to the operating room. Joel kills the surgeon, grabs the unconscious Ellie, and runs to the elevator and gets to the parking garage. And I'm just gonna let this sequence speak for itself.
Shit! Over here! I'm getting you out of here, girl. I got you. I got you. Come on. Tell me which way. We're okay. We're okay. We're okay. I got him on my flag. I said get back! Hey, stop!
can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. And you know it. Look. You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
What the hell am I wearing?
Just take it easy. Drugs are still wearing off.
What happened?
We found the fireflies. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, Ellie. People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. Ain't done them a damn bit of good, neither. They've stopped looking for a cure. I'm taking us home. I'm sorry.
Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her. Well, looks like we're walking. Should be a straight shot through here.
All right.
It's actually kind of pretty, ain't it?
Yeah.
All right. Now watch your head going through.
Here. I got it.
Feeling my age now. Don't think I ever told you, but Sarah and I used to take hikes like this. I think the two of you would have been good friends. I think you really would have liked her. I know she'd have liked you.
I bet I would have.
Oh. Down there. Just a little bit further now. There, I got you. All right, come on.
Hey, wait. Back in Boston, back when I was bitten, I wasn't alone. My best friend was there. And she got bit too. We didn't know what to do. So, she says, let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together. I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die. And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
None of that is on you.
You don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And you... No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
That's how the game ends, with Joel lying to Ellie's face and dooming humanity. I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing if I were in Joel's shoes. I mean, I was in Joel's shoes technically, so I guess it was my choice. The Last of Us was a breath of fresh air at the time, and in my opinion, the ending didn't really leave it much room for sequels. But they made one anyway, and they fucked it up.